Lily sat on the cold wooden bench just outside the courtroom, her small fingers tangled in the golden fur of her best friend, Max. The towering courthouse walls felt suffocating, the murmurs of strangers blending into an overwhelming hum around her. She wasn't supposed to be scared, at least, that's what the adults kept saying. But Lily knew better. Something was wrong. Max, her loyal golden retriever, sat beside her, his large brown eyes scanning the people walking past. He could always tell when she was nervous. He could always feel when something wasn't right. That's why she trusted him more than anyone else in the world. She leaned down and whispered into his soft ear, "It's okay, Max. I promise." But was it? Ever since she was little, Lily and Max had their own special way of communicating. It started as a game, small signals, little touches, a language only they knew. A tap on his paw meant she wanted him to stay close. A quick scratch behind his ear meant she was uncomfortable. But there was one signal she had never used in a place like this. A small, simple movement that told Max something was very wrong. And today, for the first time, she felt like she might need to use it. Inside the courtroom, her mother, Sarah, was fighting for her. Lily didn't understand all the legal words being thrown around, but she understood one thing. This decision would change everything. Her father, Daniel, sat on the other side of the room, wearing a suit that made him look important. He smiled at her when their eyes met, but something about that smile made her stomach twist. Max noticed too. He always did. A deep sigh escaped Lily's lips as she rubbed his head. "I wish you could talk," she murmured. Max didn't need words. He simply leaned into her, pressing his warm body against her side, as if to say, "I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." The heavy courtroom doors creaked open. A woman in a gray suit stepped out, her face kind but serious. "Lily, it's time to come in." Lily swallowed hard and stood, her small hands still gripping Max's fur. The courtroom felt impossibly large, and the judge's bench loomed over her like a mountain. She took a deep breath. Max walked beside her, his steps steady, his tail flicking gently against her leg. No matter what happened next, she wasn't alone. What Lily didn't know was that, before this day was over, Max would do something that would leave the entire courtroom in stunned silence. Lily's heart pounded as she stepped into the courtroom, her fingers still buried in Max's fur. The space felt too big, too serious. The wooden benches stretched endlessly, filled with strangers in suits, their eyes shifting toward her as she walked in. She tightened her grip on Max's leash. He was the only thing keeping her steady. Her mother, Sarah, stood near the front, her face tense but kind. She gave Lily a small nod, reassuring but tired. Across the room, her father, Daniel, sat with his lawyer, his hands folded neatly on the table. He was calm, collected, too calm. When he saw her, his lips curled into a smile, the kind of smile that made Lily feel like she was supposed to smile back, even when she didn't want to. Max let out a quiet huff, his golden tail brushing against her leg. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and a serious expression, cleared his throat. "Let's begin." Lily slid into the seat next to her mother, her small hands gripping the edge of the chair. Max sat at her feet, his ears perked, his body tense like he knew this wasn't just another ordinary day. The first lawyer stood up, a tall woman in a navy blue suit, her voice smooth and practiced. "Your Honor, today we're here to determine custody of Lily Harper. My client, Sarah Harper, has been the child's primary caregiver and firmly believes that staying in her care is in Lily's best interest." Lily's father's lawyer wasted no time jumping in. "Your Honor, my client, Daniel Harper, deeply loves his daughter and is fully capable of providing a stable home environment. He wishes to share custody fairly." Lily lowered her eyes, wishing she could shrink into the seat. Fairly. The word rattled in her head. That wasn't how it felt. The arguments went on, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against each other. They talked about schools, routines, financial stability, All things that sounded important, but didn't feel important. No one asked Lily how she felt. No one asked if she was afraid. Daniel finally took the stand. His voice was steady, almost too smooth, as he described how much he cared for Lily, how he had always been there for her, how he had done nothing but love her. People nodded. The judge listened. The courtroom remained still. But Max shifted. Lily felt it before she saw it. A slight tensing of his muscles, a subtle movement in his paws. His ears flattened for just a moment. She knew that look. She had seen it before. Something wasn't right. She swallowed hard, her fingers twitching near Max's ear. The signal. The one they had practiced for years. The one that meant "help me." She hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she reached down and gave the signal. The moment she did, Max's entire body stiffened. Then, to everyone's surprise, he backed away from Daniel. The room went silent. All eyes turned to the golden retriever, and in that moment, everything began to change. The moment Max stepped back, the courtroom seemed to freeze. The quiet murmurs stopped. The judge raised an eyebrow. Even Daniel's confident posture stiffened for just a second, just long enough for Lily to notice. Max never backed away from people. Never. Lily's stomach twisted. She hadn't expected a reaction this strong. All she had done was use their secret signal, the small movement that meant she needed him to be alert. But Max did more than that. His ears pinned back, his body low as he eyed Daniel, his usual wagging tail completely still. Her father let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "Looks like someone needs better training." His voice was light, amused, but his eyes. Lily caught the flicker of something else. Fear. Sarah shifted beside Lily. "Your Honor, I think this is important." The judge tapped his pen against the desk. "We'll get to that in a moment." He turned back to Daniel. "You were saying." Daniel cleared his throat and continued, this time with just a little less confidence. He spoke about how he had always taken care of Lily, how he had provided for her, how he had been the perfect father. His words were polished, practiced, just like everything else about him. But Lily couldn't stop looking at Max. His body was still tense, his head slightly tilted, watching Daniel the way he watched strangers who came too close to her at the park. He knew. Somehow, he always knew. Lily's hands clenched into fists. Max had reacted like this before, only once, and she remembered exactly when. The night she had locked herself in her room, her hands shaking, pressing against her ears to block out the sound of voices arguing downstairs. The night she had felt a cold pit of fear in her stomach as footsteps stomped up the stairs. The night Max had pushed his way in front of her door and growled. The memory made her throat tighten. The courtroom noise faded around her. She glanced at her mother, then at the judge, then back at Max. No one else knew what he knew. No one else had been there. Lily's fingers twitched again, hovering near Max's ear. Would he react the same way? Would he prove she wasn't just imagining it? Before she could think twice, she gave him the signal again. And this time, Max didn't just back away. He let out a low warning growl. The entire courtroom gasped. Daniel's smile disappeared. And suddenly, everything about his story didn't seem so perfect anymore. The moment Max stepped back, the courtroom seemed to freeze. The quiet murmurs stopped. The judge raised an eyebrow. Even Daniel's confident posture stiffened for just a second, just long enough for Lily to notice. Max never backed away from people. Never. Lily's stomach twisted. She hadn't expected a reaction this strong. All she had done was use their secret signal, the small movement that meant she needed him to be alert. But Max did more than that. His ears pinned back, his body low as he eyed Daniel, his usual wagging tail completely still. Her father let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "Looks like someone needs better training." His voice was light, amused, but his eyes. Lily caught the flicker of something else. Fear. Sarah shifted beside Lily. "Your Honor, I think this is important. The judge tapped his pen against the desk. We'll get to that in a moment. He turned back to Daniel. You were saying. Daniel cleared his throat and continued, this time with just a little less confidence. He spoke about how he had always taken care of Lily, how he had provided for her, how he had been the perfect father. His words were polished, practiced, just like everything else about him. But Lily couldn't stop looking at Max. His body was still tense, his head slightly tilted, watching Daniel the way he watched strangers who came too close to her at the park. He knew. Somehow, he always knew. Lily's hands clenched into fists. Max had reacted like this before, only once, and she remembered exactly when. The night she had locked herself in her room, her hands shaking, pressing against her ears to block out the sound of voices arguing downstairs. The night she had felt a cold pit of fear in her stomach as footsteps stomped up the stairs. The night Max had pushed his way in front of her door and growled. The memory made her throat tighten. The courtroom noise faded around her. She glanced at her mother, then at the judge, then back at Max. No one else knew what he knew. No one else had been there. Lily's fingers twitched again, hovering near Max's ear. Would he react the same way? Would he prove she wasn't just imagining it? Before she could think twice, she gave him the signal again. And this time, Max didn't just back away. He let out a low warning growl. The entire courtroom gasped. Daniel's smile disappeared. And suddenly, everything about his story didn't seem so perfect anymore. Lily's words hung in the air, heavy and full of unspoken meaning. The courtroom had fallen so silent. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed too loud. Everyone was waiting for something. Someone to break the stillness. Daniel shifted in his seat, his face tight, his fingers still gripping the edge of the table. The smirk he had worn earlier was gone, replaced by a sharp, anxious tension. He knew, in that moment, the game had changed. The story he had been telling wasn't enough anymore. The judge's voice cut through the silence. Lily, please, explain what you meant by that. Lily's heart raced. Her hands felt clammy, but she didn't look away from the judge. She had no idea how this would play out, how people would react. But she knew one thing. Max was trying to tell the truth, and she couldn't let it go unheard. Max gave a soft whine, nudging her leg, as if urging her to speak, to tell them what had happened. Lily swallowed, then took a deep breath. She could feel Max's steady presence beside her, his warmth, his loyalty, urging her to keep going. The night it happened, when Dad came to my room. He wasn't supposed to, but he did. I was scared, and Max knew. He pushed his way into my room, and he growled. It wasn't normal. He was trying to protect me. The words spilled out before Lily could stop them, and as soon as she said them, she knew there was no taking them back. Max's growl had meant something more than just a warning. It was a cry for help. The judge's eyes softened. Miss Harper, he said gently, you're saying Max growled at your father that night. Lily nodded, her voice small but steady. Yes, Your Honor. He knew I was scared. He always knows. Daniel's face had turned pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His lawyer quickly stepped in, his voice sharp. Your Honor, this is a dog we're talking about. A dog's behavior is not a reliable source of evidence. There's no way to prove. The judge raised a hand, silencing the lawyer. I will decide what is relevant, thank you. His gaze turned back to Lily. And Lily, was there anything else that happened that night? Anything you want to share? Lily hesitated. Her chest felt tight, but the weight of everything pressing down on her felt unbearable. The truth was out, but it wasn't just about Max. It was about her fear, about the things no one had seen. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. I locked my door, but he kept knocking. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. The courtroom was still. And then, as if on cue, Max growled again, just a soft rumble deep in his throat. But this time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a confirmation, a reminder that Max had always known. The truth was out, and it had shaken the foundations of everything Daniel had tried to hide. The room remained eerily quiet after Lily's confession. Everyone was staring at her, some with disbelief, others with judgment. The tension was palpable, thick enough to choke. Max sat beside her, his body still tense, but his calm eyes were fixed on Daniel. It was like he knew this moment had been coming for a long time. Daniel's face had turned ashen. He wasn't the confident father he had appeared to be just moments ago. His posture had slumped slightly, and the ever-present smile was gone, replaced by a forced expression of calm that couldn't quite hide the panic lurking behind his eyes. The judge's voice broke the silence, his tone stern yet compassionate. "Mr. Harper, is there anything you'd like to say in response to your daughter's statement?" Daniel's throat worked as he swallowed, but no words came out at first. His lawyer stepped forward quickly, trying to regain control of the situation. "Your Honor, this is baseless. A child's imagination, paired with a dog's instinct. This is not something that should be used to determine custody." The judge held up his hand to silence the lawyer. "I will hear from Mr. Harper." Daniel shifted in his seat, looking over at Lily and then at Max. He finally spoke, but his voice lacked the confidence it had held earlier. "Lily, sweetheart, I didn't mean to make you scared. I was just trying to help. You know I love you." But the words fell flat. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at him, her stomach sinking with the weight of the truth. This wasn't about love. It was about control. It was about the fear he had instilled in her, a fear she had kept buried for so long. Max growled again, just a low rumble that echoed in the silence. Lily glanced down at him, his soft golden fur now a symbol of something far stronger than just companionship. He was her protector, her witness. Her voice was shaky, but she pressed on. "I don't feel safe with you, Dad. I haven't for a long time." The words struck like lightning. The room was frozen, the weight of what she had said sinking in. It wasn't just about the night she had locked herself in her room. It was everything leading up to it. The fear that had been building inside her for so long, the things she had been too afraid to say. Daniel's face twisted for a moment, his eyes flickering with something. Guilt? Anger? Lily couldn't tell. But in that moment, it didn't matter. The judge didn't speak at first. He merely looked between Lily, Max, and Daniel, his eyes narrowing slightly as he processed what had just unfolded. Finally, he spoke. "I will not ignore what's been shared here today. These are serious allegations, and I need to ensure that Lily's well-being is protected." Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders as the judge's words sank in. She had spoken the truth, and it wasn't going unnoticed. The fight for her safety had just begun. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating as everyone awaited the judge's next words. The battle for custody had shifted dramatically. What had started as a seemingly straightforward case had become something far darker, and it was clear the judge was taking it all in with the utmost seriousness. Lily sat silently beside her mother, her hands resting on Max's fur, her heart still pounding from what had been revealed. Her father, who had once seemed so confident, was now sitting rigidly in his seat, his eyes fixed on the judge, but his face pale and tight with worry. The judge leaned forward, his eyes scanning the room. "This court has heard serious allegations today, not only about the behavior of the parents involved, but about the safety and well-being of the child at the center of this case." His voice was steady, measured, but there was no denying the gravity of his words. The judge paused, glancing at Lily, and then at Daniel, before turning back to the room. "I have taken into consideration everything that has been said. The testimony of both parties, the behavior of the dog, and most importantly, the statements made by the child herself. This is a difficult decision, but one that must be made with the child's safety as the highest priority." Lily's throat felt dry as she fought to steady her breathing. Max, as if sensing her unease, nuzzled against her side, offering his quiet reassurance. She couldn't imagine facing this without him. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his hands clenched together, his jaw tight. His lawyer, who had been silent for the last several minutes, glanced nervously at the judge. The judge's voice broke through the tension. "After careful consideration, I am awarding full custody of Lily Harper to her mother, Sarah Harper." The room seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, Lily wasn't sure if she had heard correctly. The weight of the decision was slow to sink in. Daniel's face drained of color. His mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. He stood, his body trembling with shock, but there was no argument, no protest. The judge had made his decision. Lily's mother, Sarah, reached down and gently took her hand, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. She hadn't wanted things to go this far. She had never wanted to tear Lily away from her father. But now, in the aftermath, the truth had come to light, and it was undeniable. As the courtroom began to empty, Lily felt her chest loosen, the weight of fear lifting, but it wasn't gone completely. She knew this battle was over, but the scars from what had happened would remain. Max stood by her side, his golden coat gleaming in the harsh fluorescent light. He had kept her safe. He had spoken when she couldn't. And now, for the first time in what felt like forever, Lily felt like she could breathe again. She glanced down at him, whispering, "Thank you, Max." And in that moment, she realized just how much he had saved her. As the last few people left the courtroom, the weight of the decision still hung heavily in the air. For Lily, it felt surreal, like the world was shifting beneath her feet, but for the first time in a long time, it was shifting in the right direction. She stood up slowly, her legs feeling heavy, and looked up at her mother. Sarah's face was a mixture of relief and exhaustion, but most of all, there was love in her eyes. The kind of love Lily had craved, the kind of love that now felt stronger than any fear that had once taken root in her heart. "Let's go home, sweetie," Sarah whispered, brushing a hand through Lily's hair. Lily nodded, a small but genuine smile pulling at her lips. She was ready to leave this place, to leave the past behind. But there was still one thing, one person who had been there for her through it all. Max. She looked down at her loyal companion, his golden coat gleaming even under the harsh fluorescent lights of the courthouse. His eyes, always so knowing, were soft now, his body relaxed in the way only dogs can manage after a tense moment. He had been more than just a pet. He had been her protector, her silent strength when she couldn't find the words. As she bent down to ruffle his fur, she whispered, "We did it, Max. We really did it." Max licked her hand as if to say, "Of course we did. I always knew we would." Sarah reached down to clip the leash back onto Max's collar, but Lily stopped her. "Can I hold it this time?" she asked softly, her voice filled with a quiet sense of empowerment she hadn't known she could feel. Sarah smiled warmly and handed the leash to Lily. "Of course, sweetie." With Max at her side, Lily walked out of the courtroom, the heavy doors closing behind them. The air outside felt different, fresher, lighter. The weight of the last few months had lifted, and though there was still a long road ahead, the first steps toward healing had been taken. Max walked beside her, his pace steady, as if he too knew the journey was far from over. But there was a certain comfort in the way he trotted along beside her, a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. As they walked out into the bright daylight, Lily looked up at her mother. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with tears that she held back with a smile. "We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be stronger." And as Lily looked down at Max, her heart swelled with gratitude. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a family, one that was complete. She had Max. And together, they would face whatever came next, one paw at a time.